when I turned 40, I consider this my midlife crisis. I heard that somebody at work did a triathlon. And I said to myself, a triathlon? I thought this was like an elite Olympic event that only, Olympic athletes can participate in. How does a mere mortal do a triathlon?
Oh, yes, this is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. Today's show is sponsored by Ringmaster, on a mission to launch B2B podcasts that create relationships, generate revenue, and drive growth. Ringmasterlive.com. Bam. Okay, all right. I've hit the button. This adventure is beginning and there's no turning around. I'm excited. I'm so excited to talk to my guest today. I'm so excited for you to hear my guest today because I've had some chats with him and he is, let's be honest, he's just an absolute badass. Well, who is he, Casey? Tell me about him. Entrepreneur, author, keynote speaker, and my favorite descriptor, an adventurer. Recently rode a bike from New York City to Niagara Falls to raise millions for cancer research as part of a awesome whole crew doing that. He's grown a company to over 200 employees across 12 countries. He has written the #1 best-selling book on Amazon, Built to Finish, 17 full Ironman triathlons. What is going on? Author, keynote speaker, founder of AIP Advisory, Steven Pivnik. Welcome to the show, sir.
Casey, I don't like to blush this early in the morning. Thank you for that introduction.
Absolutely. You know what? Just clip that and make that your hype wake up alarm in the morning, you know? But man, I almost lost myself in that thing. You're doing so much stuff. You're so busy. I'm excited. I'm going to shut up and I'm going to pass this thing to you. It's heavy, but you've done 17 more Ironmans than I have. So let me pass this thing to you. Okay. Here it is. All right. Go ahead and take Thor's hammer for me. You got that?
Got it.
Look at that. Ladies and gentlemen, he just grabbed that with one hand. Thor's actual hammer, just backhand grab that thing. Okay, Steven, take Thor's hammer and smash for me some kind of marketing myth, bogus strategy, misconception. Set the record straight once and for all.
Yeah, the myth I like to smash is that audacious, BHAG, big, hairy ass goals are possible and they are easy to accomplish.
So they are possible or they aren't possible?
No, they are totally possible. So setting and achieving big, hairy ass goals, BHAGs,
Yeah.
is definitely possible.
And you get a lot of people that just assume it's impossible because it's big and hairy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm living proof. And I'll go into like a whole bunch of different details, but I'm a college dropout and I was also a couch potato. So if a college dropout can start, scale, and sell a large technology company and qualify for and compete in the Ironman World Championship, I think that's, living proof that folks that are, feeling insecure about setting some big hairy ass goals for themselves, that it's a myth. Accomplishing these things is possible.
Why do you think this, like, do people are just disappointed? Where does this come from? The myth, the idea that this is not possible. This stuff's impossible. I could never be like you. I could never be, standing on top of that mountain or at that finish line. Where does that lack of belief in themselves come from?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's just a lot of insecurities in the world, right? Some things just seem so big and audacious. And it's very common for people to have some limiting beliefs. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good looking enough. I don't have the right pedigree for this. The list goes on and on and on. And it's just really, really easy to drown in those types of limiting beliefs versus, taking on a, much more positive mindset and inching your way forward towards these goals. Like the ones that I mentioned, that didn't happen overnight. One took 26 years, the other took 12 years. The business growth and sale, and then the Ironman journey. Sometimes these things take years, and as long as you can come to terms with the fact that it won't happen overnight, then these things are possible.
Talk me through that. I want to roll my sleeves up and I want to like get a syringe out and extract the goal achieving magic powers from you. And I mean, talk me through this. Where does it start? Does it start with a goal? Does it start with
I mean, yeah, I mean, it definitely starts with a goal, right? You need to have something. First of all, you need to believe, you need to really, really convince yourself that the goal is achievable. Because if you start anything with the belief that it's a, 1 in a million chance of you actually completing it, then it's going to fail. So you have to start with believing in the goal being accomplished, and then you have to set out to actually start to do it. And then there's so many different components. So you can stop me if I start rambling.
no?
I mean, the first one is grinding it out, right? And this is actually one of the first chapters in my book is really embracing the grind. We things aren't going to come super easy, right? So we are where we are today because we've grinded it out. And I firmly believe we're not where we want to be because we haven't grinded enough. So, I mean, this is the type of, backbreaking work that's necessary in order for goals to be accomplished. The dictionary defines it as, dull, hard labor, which is a perfect definition. So people just need to embrace the fact that there's going to be a grind. Things aren't going to be easy. And then, one foot in front of the other and make forward progress.
Yeah, it just reminds me of when I started a new company with podcasting. I had forgotten about the grind. So whether it's a new company or a new project or a new goal, sometimes we forget that if we were successful in the past, we probably were grinding it out. Do you even when you're training for an Ironman, do you enjoy the grind or do you suffer it, or like what is your mental approach to it? Because like I think by default, dull hard labor, I mean, may not be fun. Do you make it fun or do you just suck it up?
Both. I love the journey as much as the destination, right? So when I cross that finish line of an Ironman race, not only am I really enjoying the fact that I just, completed this, Herculean race, but I'm also enjoying the fact that, I trained and I stayed in really good shape for the 6 to 8 months leading up to it. So I just make, every single day a small win, saying that this is getting me one step closer for getting me ready for this next event. Some days are better than others, right? Today's a perfect example. I mean, I trained really well all week long, and today I just did not. I got up and I did not want to go downstairs to the gym. So that totally happens. It's understandable. Allow yourself, that excuse, not to go 100 miles an hour all day every day. But tomorrow is going to be a new day, and I can bet you then I'll be down in the gym.
Right. But now you gave everyone the ability to have that excuse. I think sometimes that excuse is used more than one day. So what is it about you that only uses that grace period on yourself to a little bit of recovery, but you're not making every day a recovery day and a rest day?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing, this is one of my favorites on my laundry list of, tips and tricks and life hacks. I call it envisioning the finish. It's like really, manifesting what the finish line looks like for you, whether it's a race, a business endeavor, a relationship, a degree. There's a whole bunch of things that you can call a finish, right? So if you envision it properly, and by properly, I don't mean you need to be an expert meditator. You can just take, go take one or two, meditation 101 YouTube courses, and you can learn how to breathe properly, close your eyes, and really envision the finishing line for your goal. And if you have that in the back of your mind, and this is medically proven, by the way, the brain does not know the difference between an event actually occurring or an event perfectly envisioned in the mind. So if you envision something, the completion of a huge goal, you will subconsciously start performing actions and making decisions towards that goal. So if I properly envisioned, let's say my next Ironman race, and I didn't want to train today, but because that's embedded in my brain, tomorrow morning is a complete reset. I'll get up, out of bed, and as per usual, hit the gym at 6 a.m.
Yeah, that's interesting that the brain, you can enjoy yourself by picturing how cool that would be at the finish line, at the successful project, at the campaign you're trying to accomplish, whatever it might be. It doesn't know the difference. So you can enjoy that, to your point, enjoy the journey. Just enjoy that every day. Like, oh, this will be an amazing thing to have it happen. And isn't it kind of true that you actually, when you get to the destination, you're kind of like, huh, okay, cool. And it's not nearly as big as maybe it could have been, or I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like,
No, no, I totally hear you. I mean, if you envision yourself at that finish line, like for instance, when I crossed that finish line in Kona at the Ironman World Championship, in my mind, I've already been there dozens of times, if not hundreds of times. So it felt comfortable. But did it take away from the actual accomplishment? I don't think so, because while it felt like I was there several times already, I knew that this one was real. And I knew that there's a difference between, okay, those were tools to get me here. The tools work. Now I'm here. Let's love this experience.
what are the traps as so you're picturing the finish, you want it, you're going for it. Are there any traps you've seen along the way that can kind of side rail you off of your accomplishing your goal?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's definitely shortcuts, right? Everything in life, has shortcuts. You can take shortcuts during business endeavors. You can, not budget properly for a project. You can hire the wrong people accidentally. On the training front, you can skip a workout here and there, try to make up for it and hurt yourself. So there's a lot of shortcuts that can be taken along the way. And I would just caution folks to, take them when they're truly necessary, but really mind them, because some of them can help, but most of them are going to hurt. So just avoid the shortcuts.
Got it. Our buddy Ed has that book, No Shortcuts to the Top.
Yes, I like that book.
Avoid the shortcuts. Yeah, it's almost like, yeah, it's like, oh, that looks like that'll be so much easier. And then the point wasn't to make it easier. The point was to grind it out. It's like avoiding the grind.
Hmm. Exactly.
How do we know the grind is actually progressing and we're not just spinning our wheels like a hamster?
So I'm a huge believer in measurements and in KPIs, right? And what got me better in measurements was actually starting to train for endurance sports, right? So sports watches record a lot of information, record your pace, record your heart rate, your mileage, your elevation gain, elevation loss, VO2 max, et cetera, et cetera. All of these apps that sports watches integrate with produce beautiful charts and graphs. So as I was running my company and then I started participating in all of these endurance sports, I started looking at my personal data about my training, my biking, my running, my swimming. And I said, wow, I have more information about myself than I do about my company. Not that we didn't have, reports at work. We did, but I felt that I was doing a much better job tracking myself than tracking the various departments in my business. So I went KPI crazy at work, and I met with every single department head, and we jointly came up with a set of charts and reports that they were going to produce and present at a newly instituted monthly operating review meeting. So instead of having the standard type of, status update meetings where everybody just shares, information about, what's going right and what's going wrong, now we're looking at numbers. We're looking at trends. We're looking at real data. And the initiative was one of the many things that contributed to the company's continued growth because everybody brought in, everybody actually enjoyed the process. And guess what? It became somewhat competitive across multiple departments because nobody wanted to show up to this monthly operating review meeting with their numbers going in the wrong direction, right? So everybody wanted their numbers to shine, wanted their charts to be going, up and to the right. And if they weren't, they knew that they'd be held accountable for coming up with some sort of remediation plan. So the way you know your grind is working is that if your numbers are going in the right direction, and I can't stress this enough from a personal and professional level, there's so many things that we can and should track in order to keep us on track.
KPIs. I mean, did you have a certain amount of them? Because I've definitely heard of people tracking 100 things and then not really tracking anything. Did were there certain, like, just you can only have a two or three for each person or each department?
Yeah, no, yeah, I totally agree with your point. I mean, the more you track, the less you track. So there's got to be it's got to fit on a single page, right? It's got to be, and there can be a whole bunch of supporting information, but what every depart. So from a CEO needs to have a single page dashboard. That on a single page you can probably fit 6 charts legibly, right? So 6 main charts, and then every single department should have the same, or I'm sorry, similar amount of charts. And then they can also be they can always be an appendix, and there always was an appendix, for other information. But there can't be any more than six main things that you're tracking.
I love that. Can you share with me, I'll put you on the spot here, 6-ish main things you like to track in business and the 6 things you like to track in your training?
Sure. So this is where I tell people to do as I say, not but in the business world, we were really good at it. So it's been about 4 years since I ran my company, but cash is king, right? So you want to track cash. You want your cash balance, you want your receivables, and you want your payables, so you know what your cash position is. You want to see how your sales are trending. So trailing 12 months and projected 12 months. The projections. So then from the projections, you need to break down what those projections consist of. How much of that projection is guaranteed revenue, how much of it is, hopeful revenue, and how much of it is a stretch, right? So cash, sales. What else did we track? From a professional services side, we also try. I'm sorry, profitability, right? So you want to track your gross margins across your various business lines to make sure that you're hitting the mark on your gross margins. And lastly, bottom line profitability. So you want to make sure that you're running to whatever profitability goals you have set for yourself.
Okay, sick. And how about you as the adventurer? What kind of health and training metrics do you track?
Yeah, so I mean, I got a pretty crazy training plan. There's always one, sometimes three or four different events on my calendar. So I almost always have a triathlon on my calendar. So I need to be swimming, biking, and running often. There's right now I have a crazy mountaineering adventure called Mount Everest. People may have heard of it that I'm going to be attempting to summit in May of next year. So there's a lot of strength and conditioning and lower body type work that I need to do for that, which is a little bit different. The endurance part of triathlon will help me for the endurance part of Everest, but there's other muscle groups that need to be trained. And then the mental muscle. I'm always reading a book or listening to a book to make sure that the mind continues to be stretched and exercised.
Talk to me about that because I know that when you're going to be climbing Mount Everest, doing these things, you've already shown that you've got a really tough mental muscle to even finish Kona. Hey, let's go run an Ironman on a volcanic island in the boring, like the blazing sun. Like you already have some muscles going on there. So talk to me about how you train your mind.
Yeah, I mean, training my mind for the physical activity. I mean, you just you have to do a lot of it to really get your mind used to it. And the mind is an incredible machine, right? It's really the mind that's going to determine whether or not your body shuts off. That's not to say that if you run out of glycogen, your body will. And I have had a couple of races, fortunately not a lot, where the body just shut down and there was no way my mind was able to will it to move forward because I ran out of fuel. Nutrition is a huge part of endurance racing. And there was like one race specifically where I just ran out of fuel. And no matter how much my mind tried to make my legs go, I kept falling.
You zeroed them out. You like emptied the tank and then some, I guess.
That aside, but I love David Goggins' quote. When you feel that you're 100% done, you have 40% more to give. And that I wholeheartedly believe in that because there's been plenty of races where I thought I was done. I thought I couldn't swim, bike, or run any further. And I just said, suck it up, buttercup. Everything's fine. You're not bonking. You've been hydrating properly. You've been eating the right amount of calories. There's no reason for you to stop right now. You could slow down if you want to, which I've done plenty of times, but don't stop. So just change the goal for a second. Instead of the finish line, which is still 40 miles away, your goal is now that lamppost, which is, a block away. Get to the lamppost. And when you get to the lamppost, okay, now find a fire hydrant. I'm going to get to that fire hydrant. So then now all of a sudden you're convincing yourself that you can still accomplish things. And when your body resets, boom, now it's back to that, 39 miles to go.
Talk to me about how you went from being a couch potato to being able to pull something like this off, right? Like, it's one thing, to see you and David just totally crushing things. But like, talk to me about while you're on the couch and maybe listening to a podcast like this. What were some of the ways you got some wins in to build up that toughness in here? How did you get that going?
Yeah, my wife hates when I use the term couch potato because I mean, I use the term couch potato because I didn't participate in any sport whatsoever. I didn't do any exercise. I rarely did any exercise. I mean, I was a skier. So that was my one physical activity was skiing. But the way I got into all this was at work. I heard that somebody had did a when I turned 40. I consider this my midlife crisis. I heard that somebody at work did a triathlon. And I said to myself, a triathlon? I thought this was like an elite Olympic event that only, Olympic athletes can participate in. How does a mere mortal do a triathlon? So I met the employee and she educated me that triathlons are held all over the country, all over the world of different distances. And anybody, literally anybody, can go to our website, beginnertriathlete.com or active.com, sign up for a race, show up and compete. So I'm like, great, this is easy. So I signed up for a short one, which was being held on the New Jersey shore near where I was living at the time. I trained for about 4 months. I didn't do great at it, but I crossed that finish line. And other than skiing, it was the first, athletic event that I participated in that had a finish line. And my family was there cheering, and it was a human sense of accomplishment. And I said, oh my God, I love how I felt for the last 3 months preparing for this. I love this, feeling of euphoria of crossing this finish line. And that evening, I learned about this beast called Ironman and the World Championship. And I said, I don't know how, I don't know when, but somehow, some way, I'm going to get to Kona. So I set that goal in my mind.
That's crazy because everyone's trying to get to Kona and who does those things, and somehow you bashed everyone else out of the way and were fast enough to be able to get to it.
Full disclosure, there's two ways to get to Kona. There's about 2,500 competitors. 2,400 of them are the fastest triathletes in the world. So they're basically there's dozens of qualifying races around the world to get to the world championship. So 2,400 are the fastest in the world. And Ironman has this thing that I call their frequent flyer program. It's the real name is called the Legacy Lottery. If you do 12 full distance complete, if you complete 12 full distance races, you get a lottery ticket to compete in Kona. So because I didn't have any athletic background, there's no way I was going to be at the top of my age group. I just went the quantity route and I just raced year after year after year.
Okay, I like it. Yeah.
And I got in. So 100 of us, lucky folks that just race a lot get to race with the best of the best in the
And
world.
you had to do those 12 in a year in order to get in the lottery?
No, so right now their new rule is you have to do it in 12 consecutive years or multiple races in a year. Even though that law wasn't in place, I did at least one a year. There was one year I did 4. There was another year I did 3 because I was just super, super motivated, to get to Kona, and I didn't want it to take forever.
Can you just keep doing it because you're already trained for it and you just keep going? Is that a thing?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, once you build up enough endurance, your body, I'm not saying that you can stop training, but when you build up enough endurance, you can kind of go get into maintenance mode and just, you don't have to train as much, but there's still a lot of training required. Otherwise, the race itself is really going to hurt because your body's taking a beating during these things. And then the recovery after the race is going to take significantly longer if you're not trained up properly.
Tell everyone what the distances are in a Ironman because it kind of blows my mind.
It's always swim, bike, run. It's a 2.4 mile swim, a 112 mile bike, and a full marathon, 26.2 mile run. And there's a 17-hour cutoff.
What's your fastest time doing that?
My fastest was in Lake Placid, 13 hours and 1 minute. And to put that into perspective, the pros that do this for a living finish in 8 hours. So you have 17 hours to finish. The pros finish in 8, and then there's everybody else. We're called age group athletes. Well, 13 hours and 1 minute, which I hope to break someday soon.
Trickle in. You don't want to be in the back. Don't want to be getting caught by the 17-hour truck. Pulls you in. Sorry, lad.
Yeah, my motto for racing is not fast, not last. Again, maybe this is just an excuse. I just don't have the athletic background to really be faster than I am. But I hate being. I'm too competitive to be last. And so far so good. I've raced a ton over the last 12 years. I haven't been last yet.
That's good motivation. That's absolutely good. Hey, you know what? Someone else out there wants to be like, I'll be last. I got to finish. Okay, you take that position, and I'm gonna be two runners in front of you, and we'll be good. Sick. Uh, well, like my next question really is like who are you? Who are you? Take me back in time, like little Steven days. Did you know you were gonna be running tries and you be an Ironman, and and actually legitimately looking at doing Everest the following year? Like, take me back. Did you know this was coming?
No, I did not know this was coming. So I'm an immigrant. I'm a kid son of immigrants. I came to the country when I was 3 years old. We immigrated. My family immigrated from the former Soviet Union.
No way.
Yeah, the part of the Soviet Union which is now Ukraine. So a little port town called Odessa on the Black Sea. We came to America when I was three. Lived the immigrant lifestyle. Talk about the grind. That's where I learned the grind. I learned the grind by watching the grind between my grandfather and my father. Just grinding it out, putting food on the table, roof over our mouths, etc. I got to school through an immigrant scholarship. I went to a pretty, hoity-toity school, not because we can afford it, but because of an immigrant scholarship. And my colleagues definitely wore their wealth openly. And not that I was bullied per se, but the wealth disparity was clearly obvious. And I was made fun of, a couple of times, here and there. Like after spring break one year, the equivalent of the college quarterback, looked at me and said, "Hey, why are you still wearing your winter clothes?" While him and his friends are all decked out in their new spring pastels and with the latest and greatest fashions. He's like, "Hey, Pivnik, why are you wearing your winter clothes still?" So that was kind of belittling. And then later on, I had a job at a I was driving for Domino's Pizza, delivering pizzas, and I'm grinding it out on Super Bowl Sunday, delivering pizza. I'm happy delivering pizzas, making people's Super Bowl parties happier. And I knock on the door, and of course, this is like many many years later. It's the same kid opening the door. He's like, "Pivnik, oh my god!" And I hear all these other familiar voices. And this is another psychological thing that I've learned over the years. There's certain events in people's lives that trigger them to chart a specific course, and they don't know it at the time. This ranges from, physical abuse as a child. Then you mentally tell yourself that, hey, I'm never going to be abused again, or other traumatic type of events. Not that this was anywhere near as traumatic as abuse is, but I think that I set a course for myself mentally saying, hey, I'm at the bottom of the totem pole right now, and I don't want to stay here. So I think that's what triggered it.
So it was the Domino's while you're at school, or what's the deal there? So you go to the Hoity school where the people suck.
Yeah, so I left the Hoyt school to go to public school. And so this is like, 2 years into public school when I was already out of this school, and I haven't seen these guys in like years. And this experience happens, and I think that's when that light bulb went off, saying, "Okay, enough being at the bottom of the totem pole. Let's do some cool things in life." Is what my brain told itself. I think I can't come up with any other reason.
And it must have been a slow burn, right? You didn't just like, chuck your Domino's hat in that very moment and go start a company or whatever. But like, how did that happen? How did you progress from delivery guy to, the boss of 200 people?
Yeah, so I started my computer career. I was a computer nerd growing up. I begged my father to buy me a Commodore 64, which was, for those of you that are listening that are mine and your age, Casey, it was the first, one of the very first consumer computers to play video games on and to program your own games. Anyway, I grew up a computer nerd. I applied to a pretty good technical school in Brooklyn called Polytech University. I got accepted, and then my parents burst my bubble by telling me that they couldn't afford to send me there. So I went to a state school instead for a whopping 3 days. My mother didn't understand why it would take 4 years to learn a skill to get a good job. At the same time, she found out about a professional computer programming course being offered that also gave job placement assistance upon completion. So instead of a 4 year degree, she goes, go take this computer course for 9 months, get a real job. And I said,
Wait,
well,
wait, so did she tell you to leave school, or did you leave school and she's like, "Well, here's a different option."
no, she told me at the time my father his business went south. He hit upon some, hard times, and I just needed to contribute financially to the family.
Gotcha.
So she kind of, talk about, minding the shortcuts. She took a shortcut. She's like, I don't understand what this business degree is going to get you. Neither did I, for that matter. I just didn't know what I wanted to do with myself. She goes, but this computer place will offer you a great job, once you've finished. So I took the course, got a job. That got me started in the computer field. I worked for a couple of large companies for several years, and then the entrepreneurial bug kind of kicked in, and I started my own company.
How did you figure out what kinda software you wanted to create?
Great question. So back in the day, in today's time, an individual wants an app. They go to their phone, they download an app. A company wants a computer system, they go online and they subscribe to an app. It could be Microsoft Office, it could be 365, it could be Salesforce, Workday, you name it. There are solutions out there for companies just to subscribe to. Back in the day when I was starting, and this is circa late 80s, early 90s, there was no app store. There was no SaaS. Any company that wanted to automate a business process needed to write these programs from scratch. And that's what my company did. We help companies write computer programs from scratch to automate various business processes, whether it be billing, customer management, news management, employee records management, you name it. If a company had a need, we would, build it from scratch for them.
And then you just grinded it out for how many years did you grind that thing out before you were like,
Yeah, so one of these custom projects turned into a software product. It was very, very niche and very, very boring. And in layman's terms, it was a big email moving truck. There was a lot of different use cases for why large companies would move email data. There was competitive wins between IBM, Microsoft, and Google. There was mergers, acquisitions, divestitures, et cetera, et cetera. So when any of those events occurred, a company would need to move its email data from one platform to another. So we did this as a custom project for a bank. And then that mushroomed into an entire suite of software so that anybody that needed to move email data can utilize. And that's the part of the business. And then we did a whole bunch of other things, but that's the easiest way to explain it. So that really mushroomed into a sizable company, spanning 12 countries, over 200 employees. And yeah, but to answer your question, that was a 26-year run. It was, it was a while.
it wasn't 26.2 years perhaps, was it?
That's funny. That would have been too ironic if it was.
You'll have to use that in your next, keynote, you know? Well, what are you doing now?
Yeah. So, couple of things. So, I've benefited tremendously by advisors, especially towards the tail end of my business. When I started really taking growth and a sale of my company seriously, I surrounded myself with folks that have been there, done that, and there's a lot to know. There's just so many things an entrepreneur can do wrong and hurt themselves during a sales process that I didn't want to be that guy. So I found somebody that helped me do it right. And so right now I'm basically really enjoying paying it forward and helping other entrepreneurs go through a similar path that I did in terms of getting their company, properly set up for a successful exit so that they can maximize the results for themselves, for their team, for their family, et cetera, et cetera. So I love doing that. And touch wood, we have a company in due diligence right now whose sale should close by the middle of next week. And I can't wait for the next one because it's such a rewarding journey for everybody involved.
Yeah, and what a great way to give back too, because what a scary and exciting time to be, potentially selling something like that, and to have someone you can trust that can kind of, no, don't listen to them. Those those bankers over here sus, as they say these days.
Yeah, totally. I mean, there's a lot of people that are in it for themselves, and at the end of the day, I love the fact I love the tagline. I speak founder because I was a founder. I was in those shoes. I know what he or she is going through. So, like a founder needs somebody like that, like I had, by their side, to help them out. And besides the advisory work, I love sharing my story on stage and with the hopes of just, inspiring others to really dream big. So I go into the envisioning the finish story. I go into, the grind and a whole bunch of other things. And so far, I've received some pretty positive feedback that people have stepped away and have really put some, BHAGs on, on their wall to go after.
Oh, I love that. Oh, sick. Um, okay. Well, before I've one other question I want to ask you, but the BHAG thing, the big scary goal, like talk us through. We're all listening to this. What do we got to do to set a little giant scary goal for ourselves? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the easiest thing to do is write it down. Create almost a storyboard and put it someplace you'll see every single day. Like what I'm looking at right here to my right is Mount Everest and the TEDx stage, right? So I have two of my many goals. I'm going to be at the top of Mount Everest in May, and I'm going to get myself onto a TEDx stage. So when you see something in your peripheral vision all day, every day, it's almost a form of manifestation where, you start taking actions and making decisions, towards that goal. So print it out, come up with some pictures, Photoshop yourself at the top of Everest or the equivalent of your BHAG and do that. And the very next step is really just to break that down. So, well, for instance, when I set a goal to get to the Ironman World Championship, I knew that I wasn't going to get there overnight. I found out about their legacy lottery. I'm like, okay, I need to do 12. Okay, how do I do 12? I need to do one. Okay, how do I do one? I've only done a sprint distance triathlon. Now I got to get to Ironman. Okay, so now I have to do a Olympic distance triathlon. Then I have to do a half Ironman and a whole bunch of other races in between. So, and that starts with swimming a little bit longer in the pool tomorrow morning. So this entire goal of getting to Kona and the world championship started by swimming a little bit longer in the pool the next morning. And then next step, next step, next step, next step. And almost any goal can be chopped up like that.
I'm kind of inspired, man. I'm gonna have to go write some of these things down afterward. One final question for you, but it's a bit of a hypothetical question. Are you ready for
Sure.
this? Okay.
Shoot.
I may or may not have a time machine, and it's actually in my backyard covered in a tarp. Okay, so I have a time machine up here in New Hampshire, right? So you come visit, come do Lake Placid or Boston Marathon or something, and come visit. We'll hang out, beer, lobster, whatever, but we'll use the time machine. And it's a particular kind of time machine because it goes back in time to 4 days after you bounced out of school because your mom found a program, right? So you get to go visit yourself then, a couple days after all that's gone down. What kind of things do you tell yourself? You get to have a conversation. It won't mess up the space-time continuum. I'll ensure that that's okay. But like, what do you tell yourself? What did you need to hear back then?
Oh, I wish somebody would have told me to get a mentor. Get a mentor for somebody to really help you navigate the road ahead. I love my grandfather and my father to death, but they were also, obviously limited by their own accomplishments. They definitely knew how to grind it out, but and but I really wish there was a mentor that could have paved the way for me so that a lot of these things would have been, I'm not saying there wouldn't have been a grind involved, there would have been, but maybe it would have been a little bit smoother. Maybe the 26-year journey could have been condensed to 13 years. Maybe if I was more active, I could have actually qualified for the Ironman instead of going the legacy lottery route. So I think a mentor is needed in every stage of life, for teenagers to older folks to people my age right now.
Man, powerful, powerful words, dude. Where do people reach out? Where do you want them to go? How do we get the book? Where do we listen?
So everything about me can be found on my website, Steven with a V, Pivnik.com. That has a link to all of my social handles. It has a link to the book on Amazon. The audiobook just came out. And it also has a link to my blog. So I'm going to be blogging about my road to Everest. And Instagram is where you can find actually daily work. If you want daily inspiration and crazy daily workouts, you can follow me on Instagram. I share a lot of things there. That's at Steven.Pivnik. But again, all of the above can be found on my website, StevenPivnik.com.
Oh, love this. Okay, I'm logging in. I have to because I heard crazy workouts and that sounds great. Though I need to pace myself here. Dude, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for coming on here. I knew this would be a great conversation. I'm learning stuff. Man, you're a smart guy, and I just to be able to grab some of your time today has just been awesome. So thank you.
Okay, so I really appreciate you inviting me, and I had a blast having this conversation.
Hell yeah, hell yeah. For those listening, if you learned something, and I freaking know you did, because I literally have 2 pages of notes over here, front and back, ran out of space, was right in the margins, put in stuff on the side, all sorts of craziness. If you learned something like I did, whether it's the B hack, envisioning the finish, just believing that goal is achievable, killing those limiting beliefs, hey, KPIs, tracking things, measuring things, not too many things, but the right things. Man, if you learned something, share this episode with one other person. 9 people, 3,000, doesn't really matter. But what matters is put what you took away from this. What was your one takeaway? Even think about it now. What's the one thing you could either implement? Maybe you're going to make one of those BHAG dream boards, put a picture up in front of yourself. What can you do today? Make that thing happen. And with that, Steven, you are the man, sir. Thank you so much for coming on here. This has been a blast.
Thank you, Casey. I enjoyed it. Have a great weekend.
All right, everybody. This has been a crazy episode. Do you all agree? A crazy episode of the Hardcore Marketing Show. We will catch you all next time.